Well, hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to this month's edition of The Shepherd's Voice with Bishop O'Connell, and we're happy to have you here in this December day. And I'll turn it over to the host of the program, the Bishop of Trenton, Bishop David M. O'Connell. Hello, Bishop.
Hello, Jim. Hello, everyone. Good to be with you today.
Happy December.
Yeah,
Advent.
how was Thanksgiving?
Good. How about you? You cook on Thanksgiving, don't you?
Yeah, I did. I cooked. How about you? Did you go?
We go to my
out?
sister's house. I
Oh,
bring
lucky you.
a side. I bring a side.
I had a couple guys over, a couple of the priests, of course, Father Jean, who lives with me, my secretary, and
Mhm.
Father Curley, who's the priest at St. Paul's, and Father Jason, who's the pastor of St. David's, who
Mhm.
used to live with me, was my secretary before,
Mhm.
and my brother Dan, who is an associate superintendent of schools who works in the diocese. So we had a good time. I
You
you,
cook it all? You take care of all
yeah,
the entire
yeah, I do.
meal? Wow.
It's a traditional
Mm-hmm.
meal. I use my mother's recipe for
Don't
things.
we all?
Yeah,
Right.
I know my brother Dan loves my mother's stuffing,
Mm-hmm.
bread stuffing. So
Mm-hmm.
he looks forward to that every year, and I always
Mm-hmm.
make him a care package to take home.
Now, did she write it out for you? You had
No, because I
you,
used to make it with her.
oh, you made it. Okay.
I observed my mom. I was kind of a mother's boy. I
Mm-hmm.
was with my mother a lot in the
Mm-hmm.
kitchen and kind of learned a lot from her.
Yeah.
So usually Wednesday afternoon, I'll fry up the onions and
Mm-hmm.
celery and get the thing going.
That
And
sounds similar to my mom's.
yeah, it's
And
pretty.
once you start frying up the celery and the onions, it's all of a sudden smells like your mother's house,
It does.
right? All
It
of a
does.
sudden.
Brings back the memory.
Yes.
I always say that's our connection because
Yeah.
my mother loved Thanksgiving so
Mm-hmm.
much.
Mm-hmm.
It amazes me. I just making it for a small group. Of course, when growing up, we had the wider family
Mm.
there and grandparents and so on. I just can't believe how much work my mother did by herself
Right.
to prepare it for Thanksgiving for
Yeah.
us. She was amazing.
Yeah.
I just make a turkey breast because I
Mm-hmm.
don't have that many, and
Mm-hmm.
enough for some leftovers.
Right.
And this year I made ham too. So
Mm-hmm.
we had ham and so on, mashed potatoes, the usual, big
Good.
salad, asparagus.
Mm-hmm.
My famous Brussels sprouts recipe with cranberries and
Oh,
bacon. And
okay. Sounds making me hungry here,
yeah, I
Bishop.
know. Great, but it was a
Good.
nice day. And then my secretary and Father Curley are both from Haiti,
Mm-hmm.
and so they went over to Monsignor Appledite's house. Monsignor frequently hosts the international priests who were seminarians
I
and
see.
stayed there in that parish.
Uh-huh.
So they went over there and joined them for a little while, and Father Jason and I had a cigar and we watched TV. And
Mm-hmm.
my brother, he stays for a little while, then he headed back home. So it's just a great,
Good.
good
Good.
time,
Yeah.
nice time.
All right. And late this year, Thanksgiving was late. So
Yeah,
not
yeah.
much. Not much. Well, there is 3.5 weeks between Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving, but not
Christmas not that
long.
far away,
No,
and
not
it's going to
coming.
be here before we know it.
Exactly.
Here and
Exactly.
gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
This year, the Solemnity of the Immaculate Conception is a holy day of obligation. It's usually celebrated on December the 8th. We know
Mhm.
that. This year, December the 8th falls on the second Sunday of Advent.
Right.
And in the liturgical calendar, Advent trumps any other feast. So
Right.
the feast is transferred to Monday. And there's been some confusion because for the last 30 years, when that has happened,
Right.
it wasn't a day of obligation.
It was a Monday or Saturday, right?
It's Monday or
Yeah,
Saturday,
right.
whatever,
Mhm.
whichever way it went.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a day of obligation. It was still a holy day.
Mm-hmm.
Still a holy day, but it wasn't an obligation day. And obviously the decision was, well, because people are obliged to go on Sunday, and then they won't go on Monday,
Yeah,
or they won't go. I don't know how true that is.
Right.
Of course.
For centuries,
Yeah,
it wasn't an issue.
we didn't bring this up, but then when they started moving the holy days around and making changes, I think it yielded some confusion. Anyway, we thought the matter was settled, and one of the U.S. bishops decided on his own to write to Rome to ask if we were interpreting the canon law regarding this correctly. And of course, when you ask a question like that to the Holy See, you know they're going to answer, no, you're doing it wrong. So they wrote back, and the bishop posted the answer on the bishop's website.
Okay.
And so all of us saw that and say, well, I guess it's been changed. So I know here in New Jersey, all the bishops in New Jersey sent out a notice immediately to the
Yes.
parish
Uh-huh.
that it was a holy day and it was an obligation. So that's Monday. And we know that people work, people have other obligations that are going to be problematic, you know. So anyway, there's a lot of confusion.
But wouldn't there have already been masses scheduled for, as if it were a holy day or not a holy day, one way or the other?
Well, the masses are going to be there. It's just the obligation is the issue.
Right, but I mean, on holy days, a lot of parishes will have a noon mass, and they wouldn't normally have a noon mass, you know. And I know,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, they do it here. This mass schedule has been
Yeah,
changed in
yeah.
a lot of the parishes.
Yeah.
Regardless of the obligation, they still provide it because people still go to mass because it's a holy day.
Well, not across the river.
Yeah, so
It's not in Philadelphia.
it's not a holy
We were
day.
notified by the Archbishop that we are not obligated to go to mass on
Well,
Monday.
again, and this came up at the bishops' conference meeting in our regional meeting. All of the bishops of New Jersey came up with the same response, and that is,
Right.
we sent it out. It's an obligation.
But we go, you know, our broadcast does go into Bucks and Montgomery County.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
And I'm,
But
you know,
in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, maybe some other Pennsylvania dioceses, that's not the case.
correct
But that's the decision of the
of
bishop.
the bishop. Right.
You know, here in Trenton, the bishop, who is me, said, "Okay, well, I'll follow the directions that seem to have come from the bishops' conference." But actually, they weren't from the bishops' conference; they were from this one bishop.
Okay. So I
Who
saw the statement from the Holy Father. I didn't realize it was a response to an inquiry.
Yeah,
I thought it was just a.
yeah, it was
he
an
just made
inquiry
made
by
it-
a
made it-
single bishop, and
Yeah.
he probably should have sent the inquiry through the bishops' conference rather than on his own. But such is life.
But puts when Cheryl and I were talking about it because, again, we work here in New Jersey, but we're in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia.
I know.
So if I go to mass here, I'll have the Immaculate Conception mass readings, etc. If I go to mass in Philadelphia, I won't on Monday.
No, Monday will be Immaculate Conception.
will still be?
Just won't be an obligation.
I see. So they will still have
That's
the
the
I
difference.
see. Okay. So they will still have the readings for the
Philadelphia
Immaculate.
doesn't have the obligation.
Okay.
New Jersey maintains or created the obligation in response to the
Okay.
message that we received from the bishop.
Wasn't there a holy day where that rule didn't apply? I'm trying to think.
Christmas.
Oh, that's the only one. The only.
So we had this issue last year or the year before with Christmas. So it was you
was
could
Monday
go,
last
you
year.
could go to mass up to a certain time. And then after that time, it was for Christmas.
Right.
But up to that time, it was for the fourth Sunday of Advent.
That's right. That was last year.
So
last
it didn't count. You don't go to mass, the 10 o'clock mass on Sunday, and it counts for both. So it makes it a little bit confusing.
Yes. But it wasn't that confusing in the past. It didn't
It
seem.
was.
You know, it just
Just
seems very
this
simple.
year became an issue, and the bishops were not happy at the bishops' meeting, and many of them that raised a little bit of a stink about it. You know, but it was too late for us, and I just said myself, I'm not changing it back. We had it one way, then we were told to change it. We changed it, and now they're saying you should dispense and change it back. I said absolutely not.
Yeah.
We'll do it this way this year, and next year we'll see. Well, next year it won't be an issue again for 7 years.
Right.
I won't be bishop anymore.
You won't have to worry about it.
Let the next guy worry.
That's right.
So,
Okay, well, that's good to know. So, you know, and I do hope still in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia that people still go to Mass on Monday.
yeah, I hope so too.
It's, you know,
And I think many people
yeah,
will.
yeah.
It's just this quirky thing about obligation. Is it
Yeah.
an obligation?
Right.
Well, we're obliged to be holy and grow in holiness.
That's right.
Okay,
Right,
so
that's right.
go to mass.
That's right. Very good. Very good.
If you can't go on Monday, go after 4 p.m. on Sunday if your parish has it, or if not, in the evening.
Well, there probably are some parishes that have normally 5 o'clock masses on Sunday, or I know one in particular that does. So that would not be the vigil for the whole. It's a bit.
too
You
confusing.
get messy, yeah.
Too confusing.
Well, so now was there a meeting down and you had your bishop meeting
The
in
November
Yeah.
meeting. Yeah, I'll
Mhm.
say some things
Yeah.
about that a little bit. This weekend, as if we don't have enough to think about, this weekend is weekend of December 7th and 8th, second Sunday of Advent, is the annual collection for the retirement collection for religious, the retirement fund for religious, which we have every year. in the parishes of the Diocese of Trenton. It's taken up this weekend. You know, in 2003, the last full accounting we have for the collection, here in the diocese, we raised 285,000, almost $286,000 for our retired religious. Part of which went to the monastery of St. Clair in Chesterfield. They received about $47,000 out of that collection that we take up in the Diocese of Trenton for their needs. This is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. Let's put it that way. It's an opportunity for us Catholics, many of whom growing up went to Catholic schools or had nuns and sisters in our parishes who did different things, sisters who worked in hospitals, served, and quite frankly, really weren't compensated well. Okay, I think sometimes taken advantage of a little bit. Anyway, this is our opportunity to take care of those sisters who are now old, retired, infirmed. And so I encourage all of our parishioners, all of those within this, within our hearing audience here, to be generous with the sisters. They gave their lives for us. We owe them something, and so let's be generous this weekend in that retirement collection for the sisters. Beautiful women, beautiful life that they have. As we think of things going on, you know, I'm mindful of the synod. You know, we hear about the synod a lot and synodality, and I'm still working on that, trying to figure out what it all means. Hopefully, I will come to some conclusion on that matter. But anyway,
and there's not going to be an exhortation, an apostolic exhortation from the Holy Father.
The Pope usually after a synod. You know, synods occur periodically in the church. There were synods in the early church, the early history of the church. Then in the mid-60s, Pope Paul VI established the synod as a kind of a permanent institution of the church. And so periodically these synods are convened or called, generally on a certain topic. You know, there's been a synod on the Eucharist. There was a synod in Latin America. There was a synod on bishops. There was a synod of faith. All these topics that were established, and that the bishops, it's a synod of bishops. That's something that, you know, I just want to mention that. This time around, however, although in the past it was just bishops who were, the voting was confined to bishops, although others could attend or participate in through their presence. This time around, voting was granted to religious men and women, to laymen and women, to participate in the synod that we're finishing up after 3 years. We had, you know, the universal, our diocesan synod, then the parish synod, and then the universal synod, which concluded in late October. And as you mentioned, usually after a synod is over, it might take almost a year. The Pope, who is the convener of the synod and the head of the synod, generally writes what's called an apostolic exhortation, taking from the synod those topics or those even some decisions or recommendations that were made, and puts them into writing, and then sends it out for the faithful of the world to reflect on and consider. Sometimes those recommendations found their way into the policy of the church, the official teaching of the church. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes the Pope accepted things, and sometimes he didn't. In this case, Pope Francis has said that he will not be writing an apostolic exhortation, that he's taking the final document of the synod, and that's going to be the statement. And even more than that, he has said that it's part of the ordinary magisterium of the church. In other words, the official teaching of the church are the reflections that were presented in that final document. And the final document of the 16th Ordinary Synod, it's called. You know, sometimes there's an ordinary synod, sometimes it's extraordinary if there's a special topic. This was an ordinary synod, and it outlined a lot of of the key priorities. The final document, which is magisterium,
Mm-hmm.
which the Pope has indicated as magisterium, and he will not be sending out another document. He's going to use this document as his magisterium. It emphasized the need for the greater involvement of lay people. That was one of the big
Mm-hmm.
topics at the synod, and the creation of even some new ministries and adjustments into the governing structure of the church and its canon law. Transparency, the words we always hear, transparent, everybody's transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Transparency and accountability, it calls for more of that among the leadership of the church. Inclusivity, I almost tremble when I hear that word because it means so many different things to
Right.
so many different people. But in the sense of the synod's intention was to create space for groups maybe that were considered marginalized and not listened to. And remember, synodality, it's listening. That was the big emphasis. And so the document asks that churches, local churches, particular churches, dioceses, and so forth, pay attention to including people in their discussion and deliberation as they implement what the synod asked for. And that's left up to the local church, the diocesan church. So we'll look through it and take some of the things that are recommended or required, and put them into practice in the dioceses. And it may take a year or more to do that, but there are many things that the synod called for that are already being done.
Mm-hmm.
They may not be being done everywhere in the world, but certainly in the United States, we have really moved forward in a lot of the things that are being asked for that are not being done elsewhere.
Wasn't that some of the concern of some people that it was less centralized and giving it back to the diocese and certain
Bishops' Conference.
bishops' conferences could?
Yeah.
I mean,
And that was one of the things that was discussed there. How much authority does an individual bishops' conference, like in our case, we call it the USCCB, United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, how much authority does the bishops' conference have, and what do they have authority over? So that's been discussed for a long time. In 1983, the canon law of the church was updated and revised, in giving some more responsibility to the bishops' conference. But the church was always, or has always been centralized. Certainly has been centralized, growing in centralization for years. But now the question is, well, should we decentralize a little bit and hand authority back to the regions, because the regions and the cultures can be so different and not really able to express the kind of unity that people would have expected in the past. So we'll be hearing more about this, and I'll probably say something in future broadcasts as things become clearer to me and to others on what we need to do. So that was, I mentioned earlier, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishop meeting we had in November. We always have it in the middle of November. And I went down to Baltimore where the meeting is held. And it was an interesting meeting. The format of it has changed a little bit from the past. You may know, some of our listeners may recall watching it maybe on EWTN.
yeah, they don't do that anymore, but they had, in the past.
Well, they've stopped broadcasting the whole thing, which they did in the past, and they had, I think, good reason to do that. It's because human nature being what it is, people sometimes would take advantage of the spotlight, and we always say, some of us always say, it's the same people where once a topic comes up, we wait for this bishop or that bishop to get up and
maybe even intimidate others who would not want to be that public.
And I must tell you, I don't think I've ever made an intervention at the national meeting. So anyway, so the meeting was good. The format, we start off, and this is different from in the past. The first day, full day of the meeting, in the morning we have a kind of a day of recollection, a holy hour, and a spiritual conference from somebody among the bishops who the Bishops' Conference administration will choose. And then we have the opportunity for the sacrament of confession. Then usually in the morning of the first day we have the opening mass uh, for the bishops' conference for their plenary assembly, as it's called, and that's over at the Cathedral Basilica in Baltimore, downtown Baltimore, and all the bishops celebrate the mass with the head president of the bishops' conference, who in this case is Archbishop Broglio, who is, in addition to being the president of the bishops' conference, is also the archbishop for the military archdiocese in the U.S. He's a wonderful man and gave a beautiful, beautiful reflection and beautiful talk. And present at the meeting, of course, were the cardinals and the nuncio and all of the bishops. So that was good. Then in the afternoon, we after the mass, we came back, had lunch, and then had regional meetings. And those are like, there are, I forget how many regions. I don't want to say 13, but there may be more regions in the United States. Like here in Jersey and Pennsylvania, we're Region 3. So the 5 dioceses of New Jersey and the dioceses of Pennsylvania are all part of Region 3. And so the administration of the Bishop Conference submits questions for us to consider. And so they presented some questions. That's when the issue of the Mass for Obligation brought up, and that's when we saw some little sparks fly a little bit. Not too bad. And then they talked about any number of other things that were going to be considered by the full body of bishops. And that was it. Monday night, we had dinner. They showed a movie, I forget what it was, Monday or Tuesday, about Carlo Acutis,
Okay.
the young man who's going to be canonized a saint. Then Tuesday we had executive session and public session and executive session. And public session were matters of concern to the Church in the United States. The executive session were matters that the Bishops' Conference preferred to keep private and quiet. And yeah, that was the week. And back and forth with those kinds of things. A lot of presentations, you know, and some of the bishops kind of hogged the microphone during the week, and so you heard from the same guy morning, noon, and night practically. They talked about the Eucharistic Congress and the Year of the Eucharist that we have just finished. I think they may have said that there will be another National Eucharistic Congress in 2029, I think.
Okay.
So that's on the agenda. Whether that will happen or not, I'm not sure. But of course, we were very encouraged by the participation throughout the country for our Eucharistic Congress, and that was good. Closer to home, right after the Bishops' Conference, I was over at Notre Dame High School here in Lawrenceville, Catholic high school, vibrant Catholic high school, and to kick off the president of Notre Dame High School's lecture series.
Okay.
So the topic that was given to me was how to raise kids, Catholic kids, in a modern age, in the modern age. Good topic.
Good topic. Tough topic.
Yeah, tough topic.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity there. There's about 40 people who attended. You know, the first time you do a conference in a lecture series, the attendance is usually a little bit lower. But there will be others coming up who will have other topics related to it.
Now, is that open to
It was
anybody?
open,
To
and
anybody,
no
or-
invitations were sent. But it was mostly parents. About 40 sets of parents from the school school.
In the theater there?
No, we had it behind. You know where you usually do your concert?
Yes.
And right behind that is
backstage.
another room.
Yeah.
And it's not a big room, but
Right.
it can seat about 100 people. So we had it in there. And we also had an opportunity, in addition to my comments, which I can summarize them in one phrase. Talk to your kids.
Yeah.
People don't talk to their kids
Yeah.
about what's going on in their minds, in their hearts, their faith, their life of faith, in their school, especially those who are going to Catholic school, to have conversations with kids about something as important as faith.
Yeah.
It's critical.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, that was basically my my pitch to
Mhm.
them, and I said it in 100 different ways, but I talked about the three Ps, not like that insurance company on TV that you hear
Mhm.
about. But the three Ps are parents. Okay, that's very important
Mhm.
in the life of faith of the kid. Parents, parish,
Mhm.
getting the kids to mass, that is so important.
Mhm.
And sadly have to say it's not universally practiced even in our own diocese.
Mhm.
It's tough. I mean, I always say that to kids after confirmation: get to mass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you hear God's word. You're with other people of faith. You receive our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. You have the opportunity to pray. Very important. So parents, parish, and parochial school.
Mhm.
So of saying Catholic school, I said parochial because I needed a
Need another
third
P.
P. So we had parochial school, and
Yeah.
I talked about the importance of religious education
Mhm.
and so on. So it was a good session. Then we had a teacher from a scholar really from the Witherspoon Institute who served kind of as the MC for the
Mhm.
evening,
Mhm.
and then she had questions she prepared, and then she threw the questions out, and I tried to respond as best I could, and then I turned it over to the audience to ask if some of the audience had some questions. So it was a good
Yeah.
evening.
And you wonder, Bishop, and how do you reach the people? I'm sure all the people who attended were wonderful people, but there are so many people that need to hear that message that aren't hearing it. Parents
Yeah.
about their children, about their responsibility in making sure their children are raised in the faith. They made that vow at their wedding,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
They made the vow, and again at their baptism of their
mhm.
child.
Yes.
They freely came to the church, presented the child for baptism, and the deacon or priest will say to them at that sacrament,
Mhm.
this is. It's not just a nice thing, as some people look at christening almost like it's a social event.
Right, right.
But this is a sacrament, one of
Mhm.
the 7 sacraments instituted by Christ. What is it that you ask of the church? And the parents respond, baptism. And then the priest or deacon will explain what that means, and basically raising the child as a Catholic
Right.
in the Catholic Church.
Mhm.
And whether or not that happens is, it's
You
something
don't want to
that
start. You don't want to be old school, but you have to let them know that there are consequences to that. If
absolutely.
and you don't want to frighten them away or but it's a reality. There's a consequence.
There's nothing wrong with being old school
Yeah.
when it comes to the sacraments.
Right. Hmm.
The sacraments and Christ, they don't change.
Yeah. Yeah.
The format, the words may change a little bit, but what the sacraments are and what they mean and the consequences, as you say, that doesn't change.
Right.
And so bringing the kids up in the faith, not everybody goes to Catholic school. Not everybody can go to a Catholic
Right.
school for
Mhm.
some reason.
Hmm.
Some of the kids are homeschooled. I talk to parents all the time who are homeschooling their kids,
Hmm.
and they make sure that they get good lessons of faith and
Yeah.
their religion. It's just very, very important. But people
But
maybe
they go through. They as you say, they bring their child for baptism. They put them through sacramental programs all the way through confirmation. Why are you doing that if you have no intent after confirmation to continue the practice of the
well,
faith?
it's a question I raise at the confirmation ceremony. We have 97 parishes. Most of them have confirmation every year, not
Mhm.
all. But in the I do about a third of those confirmations.
Mhm.
And then the other vicars help me because it's just so many, and it's all you would do all
Mhm.
the time is just ride around and go giving confirmation.
Yeah.
But I delegate to them. Actually, canon law permits that, so I delegate that to help me, to assist me in those
Mhm.
things. But I've said at confirmation ceremonies, the studies have been done. And say, for example, I have a confirmation on Tuesday night, usually 4 and 6
Mhm.
o'clock, or 2 and 4, whatever times it is, usually 2 confirmations per parish. And I will say, the studies have been done, and those who receive confirmation, say on a Tuesday, 95% of those kids do not show up for Mass the following Sunday.
Mm.
I can't fathom that.
No.
And I've said that at confirmation. I said, what are we doing all this for?
Right.
You know, of course, we have the party, we have the limousines, we have all of that
Yeah,
other stuff
yeah,
that
yeah.
the nice things that people do, but they don't go to mass the following
Right,
Sunday.
right.
You know, I just don't get it. And you know, I said to the parents, I said, you know, I hear confessions around, and sometimes in the schools, and this is not betraying anybody's confidence. But when I speak to the kids and they tell me their confession, and I'll say to them, "Did you go to mass last Sunday?" And they'll say, "Oh no." They have no concept that attending mass is a requirement
Mm-hmm.
for a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, "Well, why didn't you go?" Parents didn't take.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that's just the fact.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not making that up. That's what I
No,
hear.
no, and you know, I don't know when it changed, but when I was growing up in the early '60s, my dad taught catechism to public school kids,
Hmm.
but he taught high school level. It was after confirmation they continued the catechism teaching. I mean, the kids had to come for catechism
Sure.
after confirmation. They had to keep coming.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's still the expectation that
Right.
they would keep coming for the
Yeah.
CCD classes we used to call
Yeah.
it,
Right.
religious education.
Yeah.
But many times they don't. And you know, I say this at confirmation all the time: it's confirmation is not the end of religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. And some people think graduation from religion is a confirmation, and it's not. There's more.
Right.
There's always more to learn and more to
Right. But as I said, the onus is on the parents. I mean, the parents really have the obligation to make sure
obligation is right.
that
and,
continues.
and people don't like obligations.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's a million things that come up. Oh, well, sports practice on Sunday, which, you know,
Yeah.
especially in the Catholic League, it just bothers me so much that we schedule these things in the mornings
Mm.
on Sunday.
Yeah.
It's like talking to the wall sometimes,
Yeah.
trying to get people to change that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say to them, well, that's why we have Mass on Saturday evening.
Right.
Get them to Mass on Saturday evening.
Yeah.
Or if some parishes have Mass on Sunday evening, but make sure they get to church.
Yeah.
It's important.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, I go on and on about this, but it's a critically important thing. You know, when I was president at Catholic U, I would meet parents who would say to me at times, you know, I just don't understand it, Father. I brought my kids up in the faith, and we sacrificed so they could go to Catholic school, and we made sure they get to church, and they come away to college and they don't go anymore.
Yeah, sadly, that's what college does to a lot of kids.
And and the funny thing is that people blame it on the college.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say to them, you know, it's not the college's fault that they don't get out of bed on Sunday. Not the college's fault. The college's offers mass. Mass is there. It's in the chapel.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, why aren't they getting a? They just don't have the motivation. It just didn't stay with them. And they'll say, well, what should we do? I said, well, don't haunt them.
Right.
Just give them the continued good example that you give and encourage them.
Yeah.
But you're never going to do any of that if you don't talk to your kids.
Right. Right.
And that's the key. That's the key.
Yep.
So that's what we're doing. You know, we have the synod talks about lay participation and broader participation. You know, there are a lot of things that the synod calls for that we already do in the Diocese of Trenton, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We have deaneries. That's the regional groupings of priests. And they have meetings. They're supposed to have meetings regularly in which they bring up things that are important. The parish has pastoral councils. Not every single parish does it. I wish they would, but they're encouraged by the church's law. They're required, however, to have finance councils. That's a requirement of canon law. You don't have an option there. We have in the diocese a presbyteral council. Our next meeting is Tuesday, December the 10th, in which different topics are brought out. The fruit of those deanery meetings, what the priests hear at those meetings from their parishioners, that's brought to the table, and we discuss it at those. And there are all kinds of other meetings. I know our chancellor and director of pastoral life and mission, Terry Ginther, she's frequently creating opportunities for parishes to get together, for parish staff to get together, for you know, people who are working in religious education, all of these things. They're to have opportunities to be together and talk about what are common concerns. So we do a lot of that already. There are some more things that have been suggested, some which will be possible to implement, some which I don't
Hmm.
think will be too easy to implement. But anyway, those are kind of some of the things that we're.
And then we encourage you not go back to the documents from the Second Vatican Council, where the Council Fathers did just that, encouraged lay people to get more involved. And
More
it was
involved.
very foresightful, really, because in those days there were many more priests active in the parish and things, but seeing ahead to what was coming, I think the Holy Spirit guided them, encouraging like what we do. I mean, this is a lay apostolate.
Sure.
We're lay people, and
Sure.
it may not have happened 60 or 70 years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
No, that's true. That's true. And just the seeds were planted
Right.
60 years ago.
Mhm.
There weren't 100 Bishop Sheens.
right?
There
That's
was
right.
one,
That's right.
and the great work that he did, and some
Mhm.
others,
Mhm.
who contributed to the growing sense that lay people have that this is their church too.
Right.
It's not just the church of the bishops and the priests and the pope.
And what would the pastors do without their lay people?
Absolutely, you wouldn't have a parish.
Like,
I mean,
right?
what would be the point?
I mean, think about all the committees and who's doing what, cleaning the church is dusting. Cheryl has to manage a bunch of dusters just to dust the church
Yeah,
every week. You know,
exactly.
and it's late. It used to be a lot of the times the good sisters would be doing all that,
Sure.
right? But we don't see that anymore.
Yeah, my very best friend, he's a priest in Allentown Diocese,
Mm-hmm.
and he told me he sent me a picture of how his church was made beautiful to begin Advent, the
Mm-hmm.
new liturgical year.
Yeah.
And he said it was all senior citizens,
Yeah.
all volunteers.
Right.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful work that they do. We depend on the lay people, and for more than just cleaning or throwing a couple bucks in the collection box. This is their church.
That's
and
right.
How can we best serve them? How can we encourage them? What is it that they need?
Mhm.
That's important for
Yeah.
us.
So people sometimes get afraid when they hear that, giving more power to the lay people, but we're not going to be celebrating Mass.
What's power? What does that mean?
Right.
Power. What does
Yeah,
that mean?
exactly.
But you open your mouth and you say what's on your mind.
yeah,
There's
right.
nothing wrong with that. It's
Exactly.
very, very important.
Exactly.
Now, of course, you get sometimes some yahoos come in and they think they can run everything and take everything over, and that's not the point.
Mm-hmm.
The church is a structure, and the structure is a pastor and a priest and the staff and the parishioners whom they serve, and that's the key word.
Mhm.
Our job is to serve.
Yeah.
We serve them with the gospel. We serve them with the sacraments. We serve them with holy hours. We do all of those things for our parishioners and their spiritual
Mhm.
growth. In addition to those other organizations and groupings, the bishops of each region have a Catholic conference, and we do in New Jersey. In fact, today we met at St. David the King in the New Jersey Catholic Conference, and we have a regular agenda. We meet 4 times a year,
Mhm.
and we talk about different things that are happening in the dioceses of New Jersey. What can we share? What can we contribute? What are the best practices? Good sessions that are regularly scheduled.
Has the new bishop in Camden been installed yet?
I think no, he's not been installed yet. He's going to be installed on March 17th,
Okay.
and that's when Bishop Sullivan of Camden will, the Pope said to him, or this is what he told us. The Pope said that his retirement will be accepted on March 17th.
Okay.
Which actually is his 80th birthday.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So a nice coincidence there. I've met the new, what we call a coadjutor bishop.
Mhm.
He will succeed Bishop Sullivan upon his retirement when it's accepted. A very nice man, he's
Mhm.
fluent in Spanish.
Mhm.
I was jealous in a way, listening to how he spoke, and
Mhm.
without notes or anything. He
Mm.
just spoke when we had his mass of welcome.
Mhm.
I saw him down in the bishop's meeting, and he seemed to know his way around. He was a bishop before coming to.
Okay.
He was an auxiliary bishop in Minneapolis,
Okay.
and then from there he
Mhm.
was transferred here to Diocese of Camden. And very nice man.
Mhm.
50, he's a young man.
Young guy.
He's a
Yeah, we
youngster
said somebody
compared
50
to us,
I
Jim.
know, right? He was-
Whippersnapper.
Oh boy, that
But,
makes real.
I'm sure he's looking forward to moving in full time.
Sure. Good.
I just Sunday, December 1 was my 14th anniversary of becoming the bishop of
Oh, was it? Was it
Yeah,
December? I don't remember
yeah,
that.
that's when I took over.
I remembered you coming, but I didn't think it was that late in the year.
Now, I came in July,
Okay.
and then was a coadjutor
Right.
for a period of time.
Right.
And then took over on December
On December
1st.
1st. Okay. Well, congratulations.
Yeah,
14 years it is?
14
Wow.
years, I'll tell you. Boy, time flies.
It does
that's
go
for sure.
fast. Mm-hmm. Now, when does a bishop have to give or submit a letter of resignation or
In canon law, it's a 75.
75?
You're required to submit a letter
Mm-hmm.
to the Pope. And you send it through the nuncio, of course, but
Mhm.
you send it to the Pope and you offer your resignation. And then the Pope can accept it, as he does in some cases, or the Pope can wait for a period of time. Sometimes, like in the case of the Bishop of Camden,
Right. You said it was 80. That's why I
he'll
asked.
be 80.
Yeah.
You know, he's over almost 5 years beyond
Mm-hmm.
when he can legitimately retire,
Right.
according to canon
So it's
law.
an offer for retirement. It's not a retirement letter.
Yeah, it's a letter just saying,
I'd like to.
no, it doesn't. You even have to say that because some don't like to.
Okay.
It just says that in accordance with canon law,
Okay.
I write to submit my letter of resignation effective
Okay.
at your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pope will make that determination. He's got a lot of people advising him. Some dioceses need someone right away.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they have certain situations, maybe issues that they're facing that require someone to be at the helm right away.
Mhm.
So as soon as the one bishop retires, the other one is named. Other times you can wait for a couple of years before,
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes cardinals, when they're archbishops of a region, of a place, the Pope will let them stay on for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Cardinal O'Malley, for example, in Boston, his retirement was just accepted this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's 80.
Yeah.
And a new bishop was appointed for.
Mm-hmm. How about pastors? Do they have to do the same thing?
Pastors
to the
are 75 also.
It is also.
And at least certainly that's dependent on local law,
Mm-hmm.
or what we call particular law. There's canon law, there's universal law. Canon law is also particular law. So all of them are canon law. The law that rubrics of all of that is canon
So
law.
when one of your pastors turns 75, they have to submit.
According to our statutes in
Mhm.
the Diocese of Trenton, when they turn 75, they're supposed to submit, just like a bishop,
Mhm.
submit a letter of resignation, and then the bishop is free to accept or reject.
Mhm.
That's our policy. I sometimes will allow a priest another year or more to serve as a pastor beyond 75,
Mhm.
but I usually just confine it to a year.
Mhm.
Give them a chance to get themselves ready for retirement. Sometimes priests are not sure what they're going to do with themselves after they've been the boss for so long and
Right.
at the helm in the parish. So this gives them a chance to know that the retirement is coming
Mhm.
and that they have an opportunity really to prepare for that and decide what it is that they want to do. Some priests continue to serve in parishes.
Mhm.
Some, go off to Florida or wherever and retire there. It's
Do
what
they have the same
afterwards.
Do they have the same obligations? Like, do they have to say mass once a day once they're retired?
Well,
privately or
you never have an obligation to say
Oh, you
mass
don't? I thought
after
it
your
was.
ordination.
Oh, really? Okay, I thought it was once you had they.
No,
Oh,
it's not a.
okay.
You have to say the prayers, the divine office.
Mm-hmm.
That's an obligation. But they do have an obligation to pray. They have an obligation to keep in touch with the diocese. There's a whole host of things that
Mhm.
they're required to
Yeah.
do. But they're really, once they retire, like
Yeah,
anybody
yeah,
who
yeah.
retires, And we have in our diocese, and we're going to discuss it next on Tuesday at the Presbyteral Council. I made some changes in the retirement policy. A priest can be a senior priest, and what that means is he can go to a parish, live in a parish, have no administrative responsibility, and just say mass and help out with confessions and minister to people that way.
Yeah.
That's some priests like that because
Yeah.
they stay in touch with the
Exactly.
community.
Yeah.
Usually,
And their vocation.
yeah,
I mean, we had a priest at when we were at Queen of the Universe in Levittown, a retired priest, and that's exactly what he did. He said mass, he heard confessions. He was
Sure.
like the little sexton too. He'd set up the altar for mass and
Yeah.
things.
But he
Kept- loved
doesn't
it.
have to worry about
Right.
the roof caving in or the
Right,
boilers
exactly.
having to be replaced.
Exactly.
He doesn't have any of those administrative responsibilities.
Right.
He just has the spiritual responsibilities that for which he was ordained,
Yes.
really,
Mhm.
in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So that we call that senior priest, and we have one or two of them in the diocese. It's not it's not a common occurrence, but it's there. It's
Mhm.
available to the priest.
Mm-hmm.
And the priest could just retire.
Yeah.
So we have two retirement villas in the diocese,
Yes.
one here in Lawrenceville and one in Manasquan, New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
at St. Denis Parish. And though the priest can go there, he can live in retirement, lives with other priests, and he can go from that place to help out in parishes wherever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And priests are always have that possibility
Yeah,
of helping out in
yeah.
parishes. Or he can decide that he wants to go live in his parents' home or, house that they have left to him or
Mhm.
something like that. So there are a variety of things that a retired priest
I'm sure pastors probably welcome retired priests who want to help out.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And there's a shortage of active priests, there's a
Right.
shortage of retired priests.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so, it makes it difficult for younger men to be able to take their retreat, go to confession. They have to have coverage for the
Yes,
parish,
yes.
and that's there's a stipend involved and
Yeah,
all of that. So.
yeah.
But hopefully that'll work itself out as vocations. We got to pray, folks, for vocations.
Mhm,
Vocations to the
mhm.
priesthood.
Any ordinations, priestly ordinations this
One
year?
priesthood ordination,
Mhm.
Deacon Alan Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be ordained priest this year, this spring. No deacons
Mm-hmm.
this year.
Mm.
Next year we'll have some deacons.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have permanent deacons this year either, simply because of the way their formation schedule has been
Mhm.
structured.
Mhm.
Used to be 5 years, now we've reduced it to 4.
Oh, you have. Okay.
So that means that there'll be a diaconate ordination every other year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And is that up to the local bishop as well? Because as far as
yokel bishop, the local bishop, or the yokel bishop, if you want to call him that, but the local
depends on what
bishop.
diocese you're
Yeah,
in.
it depends where you are. But he sets up the formation program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And generally there is a vicar or clergy, or there's a director of diaconate formation in the diocese that set up the schedule. And here in our diocese, we work with Seton Hall University.
Mm-hmm.
And we have teachers from Seton Hall and teachers from the diocese, and our classes are throughout the year until the summer. Now, there may be some adjustment this year, but I'm working on that.
Mm-hmm.
This past weekend, we had 2 nice papal honors given to 2 of our great priests, Father Jeffrey Lee, St. Mary's in Colts Neck, and Father Scott Schaefer down in Toms River, one at St. Mary's, one at St. Joseph's Parish, who received the Pro Ecclesia et Pontifice honor from Pope Francis, which
Okay.
is the highest honor you can get, and it's available to all the faithful,
Okay.
priests, and
Uh-huh.
so on and so forth. But if I wanted to honor some folks because of their really long years of service
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the great work that they've done, so I was able to go to the parish
Oh, great.
and surprise them.
Oh, okay. They weren't
Not a
expecting-
word, not a peep.
Okay.
So they had no idea why I was there. Well, they knew I usually go on Advent to different parishes.
Right,
and Lent to
right,
different parishes.
right.
So after communion, I presented them with the decree and the medallion and the lapel pin and the announcement from Pope Francis. So it was beautiful. They were very moved, and their parishioners. In honoring a priest, you honor the parish.
Right, right.
And that
Right.
made them very, very happy. So I enjoyed it. It was the phrase that I used there was an early Christmas surprise to them, and they certainly were surprised, that's for sure. And then what else is going on? We have some good news. With the coming year will be a Jubilee year. You've probably heard about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so during the course of the coming year, 2025, 2026, there'll be lots of different celebrations, Jubilee celebrations for everything, really. We'll begin the Jubilee year here in the diocese on December 28th at the 4 p.m. Saturday evening vigil mass at the cathedral in Trenton.
Okay.
4 p.m. December 28th. And then at the Co-Cathedral on December 29th at the noon mass.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be joined with bishops throughout the world who will be celebrating. The Pope will have done that a week.
I think it was the 26th. They're opening the Holy Door in Rome,
Yeah,
right?
the Holy Door.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, we recently had last Holy Year we had Holy Doors in the different parishes in the
Mhm.
diocese, but Rome has asked us not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we won't have holy doors, but we'll have designated places that throughout all of next year I'll be visiting to celebrate a Jubilee Mass in the various parishes of the
Okay.
diocese.
Good.
You've probably heard about the Standing for Life Mass.
Mm-hmm.
We had a pro-life Mass in September.
Right.
January 24th at the Co-Cathedral at 11 a.m. we will have a Standing for Life Mass in which we encourage everyone to gather and to pray.
Mm-hmm.
And as the termination of Roe v. Wade, which was the national situation, and every year we sent people down there, invited people to go for the March for Life.
Mm-hmm.
Now that the emphasis is put back on the states, a lot of the dioceses throughout the country are hosting days for pro-life
Mm-hmm.
in their diocese,
Mhm.
and that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we're not encouraging people to go to Washington, but we're offering this opportunity for those who can't go or for
Mhm.
some reason would rather
Yeah.
stay close to home. So that's January 24th. And I mentioned earlier, I referred to Carlo Acutis,
Mm-hmm.
a young man, 15-year-old, died of leukemia, extraordinarily gifted young man,
Mm-hmm.
devoted to our Lord in so many, many ways. He called the Eucharist his highway to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And his parent, I had his mother here last year
Yes. Mm-hmm.
in one of our parishes, and she said, well, go figure. She said, we weren't particularly religious growing as young parents,
Mm-hmm.
but we became religious because of young Carlo
Right, because of the son.
and his
yeah.
devotion to
Yeah.
our Lord. And she said, we can't figure out where it came from.
Right.
It had to be miraculous. So
Absolutely.
we have a shrine dedicated to Carlo Acutis at St. Dominic's Parish in Brick,
Mm-hmm.
which is available for the adoration
Yeah.
and veneration of
Yeah.
the faithful. So he'll be canonized a saint. This young man will be canonized a saint in April, on April 27th.
It's
in
the
Rome.
Sunday after. I think it's the week after Easter, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be in France at the time with a pilgrimage with
Mhm.
some of our priests,
Mm-hmm.
but he'll be canonized on the 27th. And then there's another great young saint. Acutis was a youngster. There's a young adult who's being canonized, Pier Giorgio Frassati,
Mm-hmm.
both Italian. Frassati from Turin, Italy, and just an incredibly normal person
Mm-hmm.
who just had an extraordinary devotion and love for our Lord and for adoration for the Eucharist,
Mhm.
for our Blessed Mother, and encourage his friends to do it. We need more Carlos and more
Yeah,
Rosati's in this day and age in which we
Mm-hmm.
live. So those two ordinations will occur, or canonizations will occur during this Jubilee, or
Yeah.
so these two saints will be Jubilee saints.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure that we have special commemoration and
Good.
celebration of that here in the diocese.
Well, that's. I know that we did. Cheryl and I did stop at the shrine there at St. Dominic's back in the summertime. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And everyone's invited to go there. St. Dominic's in Brick. Beautiful.
Well, Bishop, I want to thank you as always for stopping by and sharing your thoughts and your good news with the people in the Diocese of Trenton and those beyond the diocese.
And beyond.
Right? And have a great, blessed, happy, and holy Christmas.
You too, and everyone.
Thank you.
I pray so much in these days for the diocese and all. Just encourage the people to remember this is an important work, and it wouldn't be possible without their support.
Amen.
So make sure you're generous with domestic church media. It's
Thank you.
important.
Amen. Thanks, Bishop. God bless you. We'll talk to you next month.